Okay, y'all, it is official. The Indiana Fever have signed Grace VanSlooten to a end-of-year, rest-of-year contract. Something was bound to happen because they need 12 people on their roster, and there's a game tonight. And with waiving Satori Walker-Kim,
that right there is the move nobody saw coming, but everybody knew was inevitable. The Indiana Fever just signed a third-round rookie nobody outside of Michigan State has ever heard of. And the reason why tells you everything about how desperate this roster has become.
Bro, they had to make a move. I made the video of that she was one of the options because, to be completely honest, there were not a lot of options. I think this is a bit of an upgrade for sure from Satori Walker-Kim, bro. She is over 6 feet, thank God. So now she is a rookie, so I don't exactly expect the biggest things from rookies, especially rookies that went in the third round.
Ari McDonald, Sydney Colson. Now Grace VanSlooten getting picked up off the scrap heap after Seattle waived her. This isn't a team building a contender. This is a team trying to field 12 bodies for tip-off tonight. And when you look at who's healthy versus who's not, the picture gets a whole lot darker.
She was picked up by Seattle in the third round. She played for Michigan State. One of the things that I did see is she does a lot of steals, so that's good. And you know what? She stuffed the stat sheet against Indiana when Seattle played Indiana. She had a couple of steals, a couple of blocks, a couple of points, and I think she was only in for 18 minutes.
Here's what makes the VanSlooten signing interesting on paper. She's 6'3". She played 4 years at Oregon before transferring to Michigan State for her 5th year. Seattle took her with the 33rd pick in the 2025 draft, and in her one game against Indiana this season, she went into the box score with multiple steals, multiple blocks, and points in just 18 minutes off the bench. The defensive activity is real. Third-round rookies don't typically stuff a stat line like that against a playoff-caliber roster, even in limited minutes. But before Fever fans get excited, we need to talk about what this signing actually represents, because it's not optimism, it's triage.
I'm not exactly expecting huge things from her. She is coming in off the bench, but one of the things that I noticed this season is there are a lot less post-ups. So if you get it big, this is why in my video yesterday, I focused on a lot of the forwards that might be able to come in and potentially cover for center, which we thought Mo Billings might be able to do just so.
Length. That's the word that keeps coming up around this roster, and not in a good way. Indiana doesn't have it. They never really had it, and losing the bodies they did have in the front court has turned a problem into a crisis. The league is shifting. Positionless basketball isn't a buzzword anymore, it's the standard. Golden State just proved it last night against the Liberty, beating one of the most physical teams in the league by playing 5 interchangeable defenders who can switch 1 through 5. The Valkyries are doing what every modern roster is being built to do. Indiana cannot. When your tallest available wing options are getting pushed around by guards, you have a structural problem. Signing a 6'3" rookie with active hands doesn't solve that. It just stops the bleeding for one game.
Happens it, I don't know, I think Maisha Hines-Allen might be working out actually in that particular position. Not too bad, but there are a lot of teams that are playing positionless basketball this season, the Valkyries being one of them. And I don't know if you saw that game last night against the Liberty, but they belted them. So that's the way that the league is going, it seems. However, length is still definitely something that needs to be.
And this is where the conversation has to get honest about Aaliyah Boston, about the front court rotation, and about what happens when your offense runs through players who can't get the ball into position because nobody can hold a screen. Micaiah Herbert-Harrigan was supposed to be the fallback at the 5. That experiment had real questions attached to it from day one. What's actually emerging instead is Damiris Dantas in that role, of all people. Stretch 4 is playing center because the alternative is putting a 6-foot guard on a post-up and praying. That's not a rotation, that's improvisation under duress. So when fans ask why Indiana keeps cycling through end-of-bench signings every 2 weeks, this is the answer. They aren't searching for the missing piece, they're searching for any piece. And the front office knows it.
I'm not exactly expecting huge things from her. She is coming in off the bench, but one of the things that I noticed this season is there are a lot less post-ups. So if you get it big, this is why in my video yesterday, I focused on a lot of the forwards that might be able to come in and potentially cover for center, which we thought Mo Billings might be able to do. It just so happens that, I don't know, I think Maisha Hines-Allen might be working out actually in that particular position.
Let me come back to what was just said, because it deserves a second look. The point about positionless basketball isn't theoretical. It's not commentary. It's diagnostic. Watch what Golden State did against New York. They put Veronica Burton on Sabrina Ionescu. They put their bigs on the perimeter, and they switched everything. The Liberty couldn't get into their actions because every screen got swallowed. That's the league now. That's what Indiana is going to face every single night in the playoffs if they get there. Now imagine running that defensive scheme with a roster where your tallest healthy front court player is barely a stretch 4. You can't switch 1 through 5 if your 5 is 6'2". You can't trap if you don't have the length to recover. You can't do any of the things winning teams are doing right now. That's the structural reality the Fever are signing third-round rookies to try to address.
Thought about length is something the Indiana Fever are not in a plethora of having. So let's see how this works out.
Now let's talk about what Grace VanSlooten actually does well, because the scouting report matters here, and there's a reason Indiana picked her over the other waiver wire options floating around the league this week. The steals number is the tell. At Michigan State last year, she averaged over a steal and a half per game. That doesn't sound like much until you understand that for a 6'3" forward, that kind of disruption rate puts her in rare company. She has active hands in passing lanes. She closes out hard. She rebounds her position, and she shot over 30% from 3 in her final college season. Is she going to start? No. Is she going to log meaningful playoff minutes? Almost certainly not. But she gives Stephanie White an option off the bench that didn't exist 24 hours ago. And in a season where every healthy body matters, that has real value even if it's not headline-grabbing value. What this signing really tells us, though, has nothing to do with VanSlooten herself. It tells us where the Fever's front office sees this team in the standings, what they're willing to do mid-season to stay afloat, and what the realistic ceiling looks like with a roster being held together by waiver claims and prayer. This roster was supposed to be built around Caitlin Clark's third year and a healthy Aaliyah Boston. Instead, it's become a referendum on the league's depth problem, the front office's inability to plan for injury contingency, and a coaching staff being asked to win games with a front court rotation that looks like it was assembled in a fantasy draft punt strategy. So watch tonight's game closely. Watch how many minutes VanSlooten actually gets. Watch which lineups Stephanie White trusts in crunch time. And watch whether the Fever can defend the rim at all without giving up second chance points by the bucket load. Because that's the real story here, not the signing. The reason for the signing. And if you've been following this team all season, you already know the answer to the question I'm about to ask. Is this roster a contender, or is it a cautionary tale about what happens when you build around stars without protecting them with depth? Drop your honest take in the comments. Not the homer take, the real one. Because the next 2 weeks of Fever basketball are going to tell us everything about what this front office actually believes about its own team. Hit the like button if you want more roster breakdowns like this one. Subscribe for nightly WNBA coverage, and I'll see you in the next video.